The earth rumbled beneath their feet, rattling the windows in their homes, and sending dust raining down from the ceilings. The year before, a series of earthquakes had shaken the region, peaking at a 7.2 magnitude, the most powerful in the area for over 100 years. But still, life went on as normal. Crops were planted and harvested, children were born, businesses boomed, and life seemed idyllic. This is the story of what it's like to live in the shadow of a supervolcano in Yellowstone National Park. Some people say that living close to Yellowstone is like living with an elephant in the room. No one really wants to talk about it. No one knows exactly what will happen if the supervolcano erupts, but everyone is aware of the risk. It's always there, looming in the back of your mind. Yellowstone National Park sits on top of a massive magma chamber stretching almost 50 miles beneath the surface. Every now and then, the pressure from this magma chamber forces its way through the Earth's crust in the form of steam and hot water, creating geysers and hot springs. When it happens in a predictable location, this is great news for tourists who flock to see the beautiful sights. But when it happens unexpectedly, it can be extremely dangerous. In 1985, a man was scalded to death when he fell into one of these unexpected hot springs. In 1968, a geyser unexpectedly erupted, killing one woman and injuring many more. People even sometimes die simply by walking across the park. But these are not the only dangers posed by Yellowstone. The majority of the park lies on the Cascade Volcanic Belt, a horseshoe-shaped chain of volcanoes extending from Northern California all the way up to British Columbia, Canada. This area is home to some of the most active volcanoes in the world, including Mount St. Helens, which killed over 50 people in a deadly eruption in 1980. It might seem crazy to live so close to such volatile activity, but this is exactly what the 20,000 or so people who call Yellowstone's backyard home do every day. So why do people choose to live so close to danger? Well, it's partly because they have no choice. Most of Yellowstone National Park is located in the state of Wyoming, but small parts of it also stretch into Montana and Idaho. This means that some small towns and Native American reservations lie directly within the park boundaries. These communities don't have the option of picking up and moving somewhere else. However, there are many other people who choose to settle near Yellowstone National Park. That's because Yellowstone is a very popular destination for tourists, which creates plenty of job opportunities. Hotels, restaurants, shops, and tourist traps all need people to run them. And Yellowstone National Park sees over 4 million visitors every single year. These jobs aren't just seasonal either. There are plenty of full-time positions available for those who want them. For many people, living close to Yellowstone National Park is a good financial decision. Of course, the further you are from the park, the less likely you are to get affected by volcanic activity. But as you move further away, you also move further away from all the jobs that Yellowstone provides. West Yellowstone, Montana is the closest town to Yellowstone National Park's west entrance. It has a population of around 1,000 people and acts as the main gateway to the park for those coming from the west. Over half of the town's residents work in either tourism or hospitality, showing how dependent the local economy is on the park. Gardner, Montana sits right at the northern entrance of Yellowstone National Park and has a similar economy based around tourism. It's a little larger than West Yellowstone, boasting a population of around 700. As you move further south, you'll come to Mammoth Hot Springs, a small community located within Yellowstone National Park itself. This village is home to around 300 people who mostly work in tourism and hospitality. As you might expect, most of the homes here are pretty basic, especially compared to those found outside the park. After all, Yellowstone National Park isn't known for its high-end real estate. The further south you go, the fewer communities you'll find inside the park boundaries. However, there are still plenty of towns nearby, each with their own unique relationship to Yellowstone National Park. About 20 minutes from Mammoth Hot Springs is the town of Cook City, Montana. At first glance, this looks like any other typical American mountain town. But this place has a secret. It sits right on the border between Yellowstone National Park and the Absaroka Beartooth Wilderness, meaning it's surrounded by some of the most remote and beautiful wilderness in America. Because of its proximity to Yellowstone, it's become something of a ghost town with a population of just 150 people. Traveling further south, you'll come to Red Lodge, Montana. This town is completely unaffected by Yellowstone National Park, yet it still feels like part of the same community. That's because Red Lodge sits on the edge of the Beartooth Wilderness and offers stunning views of the park's remote backcountry. It's also close enough to Yellowstone that visitors often pass through on their way to the park. Finally, let's take a look at the East Yellowstone towns, which are perhaps the most interesting of all. These are the towns that lie directly within the path of destruction should Yellowstone erupt. Most of the cities to the east of Yellowstone National Park sit in the state of Wyoming. The closest city to the park's eastern border is Cody, Wyoming, which sits around 50 miles away. This town was founded by Buffalo Bill Cody himself and serves as the main gateway to the park for those coming from the east. With a population of around 9,000 people, it's much larger than any other town near Yellowstone National Park. The next largest city is Sheridan, Wyoming, which sits around 70 miles east of Yellowstone National Park. This town has a population of around 18,000 people and is home to the famous King's Saddlery, the oldest saddlery west of the Mississippi River. Finally, we come to the city of Casper, Wyoming, which is around 100 miles from Yellowstone National Park's eastern border. This is the largest city on our list with a population of around 57,000 people. It's a regional hub for business, education, healthcare, and culture, providing services to the entire region. If Yellowstone National Park erupted, all three of these cities would be completely destroyed. Lava, ash, and pyroclastic flows would obliterate everything in their path, turning the landscape into a radioactive wasteland. So why do people live there? Well, it's probably because they don't realize how dangerous Yellowstone is, or they simply don't care. It's hard to imagine that anyone could live with such a huge risk hanging over their head, but these people must feel pretty safe. Otherwise, they wouldn't call these places home. All three of these cities offer a laid-back Western lifestyle with plenty of outdoor activities on offer. They're also relatively affordable places to live, especially compared to coastal cities. This makes them very attractive to young professionals and retirees alike. For example, the average house price in Cody, Wyoming is around $350,000, while the average rent is around $1,000 per month. In comparison, the average house price in New York City is around $1.3 million, while the average rent is around $3,500 per month. Of course, you could argue that people don't actually choose to live near Yellowstone National Park. Instead, they're forced to, because that's where jobs are and that's where they can afford to live. It's hard to say exactly what would happen if Yellowstone National Park erupted. Experts believe that the entire park would be destroyed and the surrounding areas would be covered in ash. But there's no way to know for sure. It's also worth mentioning that an eruption isn't imminent. Yellowstone hasn't erupted in over 640,000 years, and there's no sign of it happening anytime soon. However, it's important to remember that geological timescales are very different from ours. 640,000 years ago, humans were still making cave paintings, and the wheel hadn't been invented yet. We simply have no idea how long Yellowstone can remain dormant for. Living in the shadow of a supervolcano isn't for everyone, but these people wouldn't trade it for the world. If Yellowstone were to erupt, they'd be in big trouble. But until then, they get to enjoy some of the most stunning scenery in America, and some of the best beer and burgers too. Now, check out how does it feel to live in a prison for 10 years, or watch what really happens when nuclear bombs drop.